Some way, somehow, I'm going to do this. I'm going to square this. Now, here at the Church of Elvis and Even More Latter-day Saints, which I'm the founder, pastor, spiritual advisor of. By the way, marketing says I need you to like and subscribe to this channel and share it. And if you could do that, it'd be great. It would get marketing off my ass. I always forget. We talk vinyl and pressings here. We will with this band. It'll take 5 seconds. But we also like to take the intellectual journey. One, because it's fun, and it doesn't always end to an emphatic point. We just want you to know we're thinking. That's all. And today, we are going to square, or attempt to square, the similarities between the Apollo space program, Saturn rocket, versus the greatest American rock and roll band of all time, the Ramones. I don't care what you think. Argue with your Uber driver. They are. Two groups that have way more in common than you think, and deep, deep, uniquely American qualities, for better or worse. The Saturn V rocket was the greatest, right there, baby, the greatest device ever built for speed in the history of the world. The only thing to take humans past low Earth orbit. Took 12 men to the moon to walk on it. 300 feet tall, escape velocities upwards of 25,000 miles per hour. Speed. The greatest device of speed. And the Ramones use speed to change the world. And the Saturn rocket basically took 4 groups to get it together. North American Aviation, Boeing, Douglas, and the computer guys, IBM. And they didn't always work well together. And there are a lot of arguments and anger and dysfunction at times. Just like in the Ramones. Just like the dysfunction and just utter despair at times in that band, but they kept going. And just like the program of Apollo, the Ramones, both of them left lasting influences on our lives, whether it be the Apollo side with the tiny little cameras, the LASIK surgery, the memory foam, ceramic integrated circuits, and the Ramones leaving a wake of bands that were influenced by them, that we went on to love and cherish, who all point back to the Ramones. Now, the Ramones had their influences, of course. Giants, Chuck Berry, girl groups, Elvis, the Beach Boys, Iggy and the Stooges, the Doors, the Velvets, on and on and on. But they, the Ramones, deserve a hell of a lot of credit for saving rock and roll. The inspiration of this video is 2-part. One, it goes to Vinyl Richie. Vinyl Richie, I'll try to contact on this. I hope he doesn't mind. But Vinyl Richie runs a top 10 of every year, and I'm not sure. He's up to 1976, and his #1 record, appropriately, was the Ramones' first record. But he does it. I've sent so many young people who are building record collections to his channel because his top 10s don't miss. They don't miss. They're incredible. The other side of the coin of inspiration is my father, the Reverend's father, who's getting old, whose life was dedicated to the space program. He accomplished incredible things, and we've had incredible, joyous conversations about the American space program and things he can talk about now that he couldn't talk about before. And it's a lot of fun, and I love him dearly. So this one goes to Dad, too. What's it like to ride in a Saturn V rocket? Well, I have 2 quotes, and one is cabin talk. Obviously, that came out some later time. Bill Enders, astronaut Bill Enders, I was convinced that we had it in for us. This just can't be the normal environment for this thing. He also said that he felt like he was in the jaws of a very big dog who was shaking us side to side like a little toy. My favorite cabin crew talk was, after an audible gasp after stage 1, astronaut Ronald Evans said, "Jesus Christ." And Eugene Sarin told him, "I told you to hang on. Look at that son of a bitch go." And that's how I felt after I saw the Ramones the first time. I thought, Jesus Christ. It's one of the fastest things I've ever seen at that stage in my life, and I couldn't believe what I was listening to. You know, they really did save rock and roll. And although their influence initially, their acceptance initially was overseas, they could play to 3,000 in England and come home and not be on the radio and barely get a gig. But they achieved escape velocity. Their first 3 albums put them into the vacuum of space where no singular mass can control them. And it was the relentless touring, specifically early touring on those 3 albums, that left a wake of band after band after band that would pop up the next day. People who never touched an instrument in their lives were filling up garages across this country. Bands that we went on to love, still love. It's incredible. And the atomic chain reaction of the Ramones, for the losers, for the outsiders, for the socially wounded, may have felt slow and arduous, but it was unstoppable, and it was going to happen, and nothing was going to stop it. The Ramones were uniquely American, I said that. And what I mean by that is that they had the audacity to be dumb, to be stupid, to push through the dysfunction. And many of you right now, could be right now, many of you might find here and abroad, might find America dysfunctional and stupid or dumb. And I'm not here to say either way. I support anyone's opinion, their ability to express it. It's important. And Joey, with OCD, a completely unusual person in appearance. If you saw him, it was remarkable. Alcoholism, autoimmune diseases. Johnny with his, at times, ruthless right-wing attitude towards others, his meanness, his precision control, though, of the band's image, brand, and finances. Dee Dee, a drug-addicted hustler, allegedly. He wrote some great songs and liked nice things. And Tommy was Tommy. Joey lost his girl to Johnny. That's where that great song, the KKK, Away, came from. And in great family dysfunction, they kept it repressed. And they never squared it. Not even at the death of Joey did they talk about that situation. But they kept pushing and pushing through that dysfunction. They were true weirdos, true outsiders. In reality, they were the many, but the many in the shadows. Now, there was dysfunction in the Apollo program, believe it or not. You're going to have it in a program that big. You're going to have outsiders. You're going to have people that are unlikable, not from the best schools, hyper-competitive environment, those who maybe didn't have the highest rank in the military who came over. People violating protocol. My favorite rebel of that group is Dr. John Halbolt, who was convinced the other nerds had it wrong, that lunar orbit rendezvous was the safest way to get men to and from the moon safely and back home. And his idea was rejected over and over and over. He didn't come up with the idea. He was convinced that the space program not thinking about this idea was tragic and was going to have devastating consequences. So he became obsessed with it. You know how unlikable this guy was? This wasn't even his job. It wasn't even his job. He wasn't even being paid to think about this problem, yet he was obsessed with it. And he violated protocol multiple times, finally going over his boss's head to the director, who read his notes, thought about it for some time, consulted others, and finally, lunar orbit rendezvous became a reality. And the old doctor wasn't at NASA too long after that. But years later was invited back, because he violated protocol. He was invited back to be with the directors when the space capsule landed on the moon. And soon after that, everyone who was anyone in that program knew his name, and he was awarded all the accolades that you can imagine for the rest of his life. 38 years it took for the Ramones' first record to go gold. 38 years. Okay, vinyl really quickly. This is the 2018 pressing, which I think is a 2016 remaster. They call it the Superior. The Rhino one from 2011 is from the master tapes. I can't seem to find it for some reason. I hope I didn't sell it. Anyways, I looked it up. It's like 18 bucks now, this one, the latest one. Totally worth it. It's a little bass heavy, unless you have the OG. So, band, I told you I'd do it in 5 seconds. Band after band going into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, pointing back to the Ramones. like U2's Bono saying they'd be nothing without the Ramones. But that's typical Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's kind of garbage. The B-52s aren't even in it. Late in their career, they were playing to 30,000 kids and people in Latin America. Their music was an elixir to those living under currency collapses, high inflation, and hopeless governments. And then they'd come back and played 800 in Topeka. Johnny Ramone talked about how his goal, and he worked so hard to save $1 million. By 3 years after they broke up, he had made more money in royalties after they broke up than he did the entire time touring and making albums. It's just the way it goes sometimes, I guess. In summary, you might feel dismal about Old Glory behind me, about this republic, and there are plenty of reasons to feel that way. I will never tell you how to feel. But I hope through dysfunction we continue to do great things. I see it in our streams, people from different backgrounds, different political, cultural, different countries coming together and becoming great friends, sending each other records, talking offline, really developing great friendships. And I'm an optimist. This isn't a rah-rah nationalism speech. I'm not an optimist because of the Republic. I'm an optimist because I believe in the individual. The individual decides to collectively get together and accomplish great things. I believe in that because it gives me conviction. It gives me the conviction that I can do something great. And more importantly, it gives me the hope that the dreams and hopes that the people I love, grand or small, can also be accomplished. That you're capable of anything. There's no cap on knowledge. It's infinity. Knowledge is infinity. And with that, anything is possible. And that's what makes me an optimist. Have a great day. Hope you're doing well.